Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Hey there folks, welcome you all to podcast number 2, people. I enjoyed doing this podcast style last week so much, I thought I would do a podcast 2, people. For anyone who's stumbling on the channel for the very first time and thinking, oh my god, he's only ever done 2 podcasts, I've done about 170 odds vlogs. I've just started calling them podcasts. The vlogs were, I'm going to say this, I'm going to keep it short because I will say it in the first number of these podcasts that I do. The vlogs were a little bit less close to the microphone, a bit more casual, and I'm doing these podcast style because the microphone is a bit nearer to me. It's a little bit of a different style doing a podcast, having a proper good chat about things. Whereas the vlog's a little bit more open and I can sort of throw my arms out a bit more. Jazz hands. But I loved that. I loved the way the video came out last week. I've no fancy screenshots for you this week. I've just got the PS4 dashboard for you. Whether or not I put any vids up behind this, I don't know. I've been hammered this week, people. Well, I'm working on a project at work which has got a deadline for the end of this month. It was always going to be tight. I've actually exceeded what was expected of me to have ready for that date, so I've done far more. But I wanted to actually have the whole thing completed if I could manage it, because I kind of started seeing a lot of light at the end of the tunnel with some of the bits of it. I think there might be. They'll always, with new product, there's always things to do after you've gone live, you know. But I was just on a roll this week, and I've just been hammering it. And every day I've been working later than I would have done, including today. So I've recording this at 6:15 on Friday. Well, today, if you pick this up today, if I get it up in time. But normally I'd start recording this at about 4:30. But yeah, I've been absolutely hammered. Well, only it's self-inflicted hammered, really, because I was on such a roll. When you're coding and you get into a roll of it, you get into the swing and you're in the zone. Stepping away can sometimes be quite detrimental, because you'll come back the next day and you'll have forgotten bits and pieces of what were in your thought process. So I rather stupidly, people. Although I can claim my flexi time back, so it's all good and well. But I finished up. I was so hungry. I finished up at about 4:30 yesterday. I cooked myself something to eat dead quick, and then I thought I'm going to just finish this bit and watch the footy while I'm just finishing this bit of work. So I went back on, started doing some more work, coding away. And before I knew it, it was like 11 p.m. Like the second footy game had finished, and because I had it on in the background, and I just was totally in the zone. I got so much done. And then today was the same, and I just kept finding things to tweak and do. So it's been one of those days, and I thought, well, if I record like this, then the chances are that I won't have to go finding loads of video footage and put loads of video footage into it, and that's always a longer process for this sort of stuff. So if I record it like this, more of a podcast, just my beautiful face, but slightly smaller in the middle of the screen, and you know, not so much of the stuff in the background, then I didn't know that the PlayStation went dull. It was part of the reason that I put it on. Well, it's not as bad as the Xbox One, because the Xbox One actually has this massive thing that comes up on the side of it, which is really, really obvious. Should we just do that from time to time? I tell you what. Because you can't see the controllers anyway, I'll put that a bit more near me. If I see it go dull, I'll just reach down here and twiddle me joystick, people. As I do. Joystick Steve has to, didn't he? Anyway, I ramble on slightly, but it's been a very, very busy work week. On top of that, my car failed its MOT a week or so ago, which was fine. I mean, it's a 20-year-old car. It's the first time it's ever failed its MOT in the 5 years I've had it. Needed some welding work done. It's always going to be the rust that gets these things in the end, so that had to go off. So I've had a bit of diving back and forth to the garage. I've got to take it once more back to the garage. I went to a different garage to get it all sorted out, because the main garages don't do welding work. So I need to take it back to the main Honda garage on Monday morning, and then that'll be that hopefully sorted. And yeah, so it's just been a very busy week work wise. Couple of things, you know, car wise to sort out, but it's been a good week though. Been good. And gaming wise, I've tried to position this mic actually a little bit better than last week. I noticed when I was watching it back, the only thing I didn't like was that the mic was right in front of me all the time. So I've actually rejigged it so that I can have it a bit lower down and angled. So hopefully that's a bit better. It annoys me when I watch these podcasts and the microphone's kind of it's like all you can see is like the top of their eyes, top of their head. Gaming wise, yeah, I've struggled actually. I do get some gaming topics news wise to talk about, but I just thought I would sort of run through my week and what I've been up to gaming wise. Gaming wise, we know I finished The Last of Us Part 2 last week, did the podcast on it, and I've really struggled to find another game. It's always like that when you invest in a game so heavily, and a game like that especially, which there's only been one other type of, and that one didn't expect as much thought process as this one did. I mean, expected the only two games I've ever had this amount of thought process about are The Last of Us 1 and 2, Part 1 and Part 2. But I just couldn't find myself getting into anything else. And funnily enough, I've put up like I tried to. I looked through things. Metal Gear Solid was kind of in me head anyway, because I still haven't finished that game, shockingly. But I was looking through my trophy list to see what might be worth playing again, or easy plats or whatever. And I stumbled across Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade, and there's only one trophy I haven't got for it. It's the only trophy you can miss, and it's touching all the lore stones, and I must have missed one or two of them. So I thought, well, I'll run through that again, because I wouldn't mind actually playing the game again with the new one on the horizon now that it's an Xbox exclusive, of course, but playing it again just to experience it again, because it is such a good game. And I thought, well, I'll follow a walkthrough, just make sure I don't miss the lore stones, and then that's one trophy, and it's another plat for my little list, because I've only got a few plats. I have, I can't remember now, I think it's 6, but only 3 of them are quite hardcore, 3 of them are quite easy. The 3 hard ones were Dead Space 1, Dead Space 2, and the only one I've got that's kind of hardcore on this gen was the Dragon Age Inquisition. But I don't go for plats unless they really pique my interest. Like, I only do them if I want an excuse to play a game just to death. And there's very few games that ever give me that vibe. The Last of Us 1 was one of them, but I had to not get the plat for it, because there was no way I was spending 200 hours of game time online to get those 2 online or 3 online trophies. If it wasn't for those online trophies, I would have a Last of Us Part 1 plat. And it's just outrageous. I mean, it's actually hit the opposite end of the scale with the Last of Us Part 2, because there isn't a difficult plat in the whole game. Like, pretty much everything, if you take your time and look around everywhere, you can do nearly all of it in one playthrough, but you have to play it again to upgrade your weapons and your abilities, because there's not enough stuff in the game to do it in one run. But there is no difficulty for that game, and I was really disappointed with that, because one of the main things that draws me to play a game again is having a few different difficulty trophies to sort of aim for. But PlayStation seemed to have gone with this, don't make any trophies hard for first party stuff anymore, just make them easy plats. And it's a little bit disappointing. Like, I understand, like, they got grief, I think, for putting the online stuff on there, and that's fine. Just take the online stuff away, but give us the challenges. I mean, they may release more trophies for doing them harder, but it's not the same. Like, you have to have earned a plat. Like, you can't just, if you on AAA titles like that, you need to earn a plat. Like, just give me it on a difficulty. That's fine. But it's for me anyway. I know. Aaron doesn't agree with me. He actually prefers plats that you can get on one playthrough. But my whole purpose of trophies is that it's an excuse to play the game again. And if they're not there, then there's very little pull for me. Unless the game's amazing, there's very little pull for me to go back and play it. Dead Space is one of the few that I'll go and play, or Dead Space 2, that I don't have any trophies left to get. But I would go back and play them anyway, just for the sheer hell of it. I didn't get 3's plat because it was anyway. Don't get me started on that again. Dead Space 3. It wasn't awful, but oh my god. Anyway, should we move on to some news, people? Well, actually, yeah. So my point being, I was going to go for that, but then it was taking about 25 years to download. I mean, I've got really good broadband, but it was still taking ages. It's about 26 gig. It takes a long. This is why I buy games on disc, people. You know what I mean? If you have a whim to play something, then you throw the disc in, and the worst case scenario is that it's installed on the PlayStation anyway within about 15 minutes. Worst case, some games install within like seconds because they obviously just run most of it from the disc. But anywho, it was taking ages, so I thought, well, I'll let it download and I'll find something else to do. And I started doing Metal Gear Solid, deleted my save file, started it from scratch, played the intro, and it was when I hit the open world I thought, yeah, I forgot how much you've got to invest in this. It was almost like what I wanted, actually. What I should have done was put the PS3 on and played Metal Gear Solid 4. I think that's probably where I would have been better off. But anyway, so that quickly came to a halt after a couple of hours. And then I also had it in the back of my head that I still hadn't played Titanfall 2, which I'd had for ages on the Xbox One X. So I threw that in and I've been plugging away at that. And it's not a very long campaign either. I think I'm pretty heavily into it anyway. I don't think I've got that much more to do, I don't think. But it's just super fun and quick to play through. You don't have to go looking for... I mean, there is some helmets and stuff to find, but in the main part, you know, you've got your jumpy puzzles to solve and your, you know, battles to fight, and it's just good fun, you know. Interestingly, I think it's the guy from God of War, the new God of War, that plays the Titan in it. Teal'c from Stargate SG-1. I'm not sure who's doing the voice of the main dude. But anyway, good fun. That's what I've been playing. I thought if I'm going to try and do something, I'm not going to heavily invest in anything because I've got Ghost of Tsushima coming in 7 days, people. In fact, this very day next week, I should have it in my very hands. Although I probably won't play it till the Sunday because it's a bit of a rubbish day for me. That it's a better release day for me is Tuesday because I'll play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Fridays I tend to do this, have a few beers, chill out. Saturday tends to be my just binge watch TV and eat snacks if I've not got anything on during the day. And then Sunday is back to gaming again if I've got some gaming to get on with. So I'm not sure that I'll do any Ghost of Tsushima until Sunday next week. But what I have got, though, as I told you in the previous ones, is the beautiful collector's edition. Well, it's not the collector's edition. What's it called? Special edition? It's the one, not the one with the statue. It's the one with the steel book and some other bits and bobs with it. Some artwork and maybe music, something like that. It was like 70 quid instead of 50 quid or whatever. But I've got this thing in my head now where if it's a really good game or even a first party title that I really want, if I can get it steelbook, I'll get it steelbook. And I think I said in one of my other vlogs I'd ordered these two bookends of the two dwarves from The Hobbit / Lord of the Rings, but from The Hobbit mainly, I think, to put the steelbooks between. And frustratingly, I ordered them from Wish, and this was a month ago. And I think it said on it would take a couple of weeks to come. So a month went by. I then got an email saying, "Are you sure? Do you still want them? Because we know it's taking a bit longer." And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." And the next thing I know, I get a thing through the door from the post office saying, "We can't deliver this package because there's £10 of custom fee to pay on it." It's like, well, that's a bit bloody cheeky. There's no mention of that when you bloody order it, you know what I mean? It's a good job that they were like a third of the price that they normally are, because I got them for 20 quid and they're normally 80 quid, so I think, 40 quid's still fine. Anyway, I've been online a few times to try and pay for the customs, but it's not actually come through customs yet, so it keeps saying try back again later. So anyway, those are the two things I've got to put these. I've got 5 steelbooks now. I'll show this all off. I was going to show the steelbooks off on another vlog, and I thought, well, I'll wait till I've got the bookends for them to show it all off. But I've got, when Ghost of Tsushima comes, I'll have 5 steelbook editions that can sit nicely between the 2 bookends, which is quite smart. So there you are. Should we get on to some news, people? I need to remember not to turn away too much from the microphone when we're doing it podcast style, people. You go in and out, in and out. Right, what have we got, people? My gaming. We've talked about my gaming. So let's start with a little bit of Sony news. Well, Sony, interestingly, have bought $1 million worth of shares in Epic, who are doing the Unreal Engine 5. And this is actually interesting because it's minority shares. Because if you look at what the price of Epic is, it's like billion blah dollars or something. But it is still it's a fair amount of money to invest in a company. And it's interesting that's the second piece of epic Unreal Engine 5 / news that we've had about Sony, because we know that Unreal Engine 5 is coming on all platforms to all developers, that can use it for any platform they like. But it's been predominantly Sony and PlayStation that they've been shouting about with regards to the Unreal Engine 5. So far as they wanted to push the Unreal Engine 5 with a Sony demo, with a PlayStation 5 demo, sorry. And we got that really impressive demo of playing that. I can't remember what it was now, but it was like a 5-10 minute thing where this, it was almost like playing Tomb Raider / something else, with this character bouncing around all over the place through rocks and hills and flying around, jumping around. And the load screens were literally, there wasn't any, and the pop-in wasn't there. There was no pop-in, and it was showing off just how quick this new SSD type hardware is working on the PlayStation. The architect, not just that, but the architecture underneath the SSD, which has removed all the bottlenecks for data to get through. So it's just really interesting that there seems to be an awful lot of Sony / Unreal Engine 5 epic stuff going on. So it's going to be, if we hear any more about that, it'll be interesting. Whether or not that means that they'll partner up with them in more things, whether it means that they get to sit down with them a lot more, understand the engine a lot more, or guide and help with how the engine might work on this new. Because they keep going on about, the Epic people keep going on about how impressive the new Sony architecture is, but they're not saying it about anybody else's. They're really, really impressed with just how quickly the data can get through the PlayStation 5. Because it doesn't matter if you make the SSD fast. If it gets stuck in the underlying architecture, it's still going to have a load time. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see the load time differences between not just in loading a game up, but also inside. I'm going to be fascinated by the Digital Foundry stuff that goes on with the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, because I've got a feeling that it's going to be benefiting one to a deficit in the other, and vice versa. So I think obviously the extra teraflops is going to help the Xbox Series X push that bit harder graphically and maybe frame rates wise, possibly. But when it comes to the actual performance of like how everything runs and how quickly it runs, and when you don't get all that pop in, it's going to be really interesting to see if there's a big difference in this architecture that Sony have come up with. So I'm really fascinated by it. It was really interesting to see that piece of news. Going on to Microsoft, there's several bits of Microsoft news actually. Microsoft Games Showcase has finally been announced for July 23rd. And it'd be super interesting to see what they're going to show off. I mean, this is it. This is the big one for them. They need to be showing off some big hitters from their first-party titles. They know this has been the challenge for the last number of years. They've got all the hardware sorted out. The Xbox Series X sorted that. They've got the Xbox Series X coming. The Xbox One X sorted that. The Xbox Series X is coming. And even the Xbox Series S, if that ever happens. But the Xbox Series X is certainly coming. And so the hardware side's sorted out. So if they want to get people, at this point, for me, I don't think they're going to be swinging PlayStation players back to Xbox. But I think what they need to do is push people into having an Xbox as well. Because at the moment, I don't think PlayStation players have got many reasons, if much of any, to be buying an Xbox as well as a PlayStation. I have both, and the Xbox One X is my primary machine at the minute for third-party gaming. But that's because I'm in a nice position to be able to have two consoles and not worry about the cost of it. I make those investments. I don't buy much else in life, so that's my treats. Not everyone can do that, and not everybody wants to have a split library. But I've never, it doesn't bother me which platform I'm on. I want to play where I'm happiest and where I feel I'm getting the best experience. And at the moment, for cross-party games, I feel like that's on the X. And obviously, the first-party stuff's kept me going back to the Pro on PlayStation. But it's going to be really interesting. I'm already a big fan of PS5. I love the way it looks. I know it was a bit of a polarizing effect when they first showed it off. I love it. I wish the controller wasn't two-tone, but I love the box. If it came in just black, I would buy it in just black. But I love the design and I love the shape of the controller. Not a massive fan of the two-tone, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means that I would have preferred it as all black. So if they do an all black one at some point, Well, if they do a mid-generation type one again and it's all black, I might go for that. If they certainly do a controller in black, I'll probably get a second controller. I think last time when I bought the PS4, I got a blue controller and a black controller. No, I didn't. I had 2 blacks and I bought a blue later. So I don't think there'll be any other colour of controllers available at launch, but we could be wrong. If there is, I'll try and buy a black one and a white one and keep the white one just as a backup. I just feel like the white will get dirty quickly, but, you know, maybe that's a false thing I'm feeling. But I went right off track there, people. What the hell were we talking about? Oh yeah, so this event, this Microsoft event, they've got to pull out the big guns, people. They've got to be showing us what these first-party AAA developers are doing. And I think we're going to see it. I think some of the games will still be quite far off, but I think we'll get a heavy dose of Halo. I think we need to see some gameplay of that, and I think they'll drop the Fable in there. I think they'll drop whatever it is Obsidian are doing in there, just as that's pretty far off for Obsidian. But I think they'll show us a little teaser. They've got that other, the Initiative doing something, the brand new studio there, and maybe a tease of what Coalition are up to with the next Gears. But they've got to start punting the new studios at us, because if it's just more Halo and more Gears, then sorry, you know. And obviously Forza. If you're doing Halo, Forza and Gears, then you've not shown anything that's going to wow people and bring people back to Xbox. You need to show off what you're doing with brand new AAA first party titles to make somebody think, well, I have to have an Xbox because of this blah blah blah. So it's going to be really interesting. It's at 9 o'clock PT, I think. I don't know what that is in English time. It's probably about 8 o'clock in the evening or something. It's usually about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the evening when these things happen in this country. All right, so the Microsoft officially running for the WB Interactive Studios. So I mentioned this in a vlog a few weeks back, and I said that they should absolutely be thinking about that. Like, there's at least 4 big studios there that could give them cracking AAA titles, even if they don't buy any rights to Batman and Harry Potter and stuff. Those games will still launch, and they'll still own those companies, so they'll still make some money. But even if they don't follow up those games with more Batman and more Harry Potter, they're still massive, and Monolith as well with the Lord of the Rings stuff. They are massive AAA studios that can, you know, give them, you know, they'll have new ideas for fresh products anyway. So if they could hammer out, if they've got their engines already as well, they can hammer out AAA titles probably within about 4 years, 3-4 years. I mean, Kojima did it with bloody, what's its name, Death Stranding. I mean, he didn't take that long to get that game out. I think it was 4 years. He came over to PlayStation it was about a year, wasn't it, after, because he still was there to launch Metal Gear. Then it all went south with Konami. So he basically walked in, picked his engine, which was the Horizon engine, Horizon Zero Dawn engine, then started developing his game because he already had the idea, and then within about 4 years it was, I think, that we had Death Stranding. So it is possible to push out a game, a brand new, you know, if you've got an engine and all your assets ready, to push out a game within 4 years, a good one. I haven't played Death Stranding, but, you know, I think it's a good game. It's just whether or not it is of interest to you. But, you know, those 4 studios could easily start punting out massive titles quite quickly. And that is studios that it would take a long time to build from scratch. You know, Rocksteady and Monolith, and the ones making Harry Potter, is it Avalanche? And there's also the people that make the Lego games. I mean, they're well soaked in the industry now. I mean, they can crack out games like nobody's business. So if anyone is going to gain the most out of that sale, it would be Microsoft, because it's an instant winner. Like, there's nothing that could go wrong with that. Like, just buy it, get those studios. If you want to pay a little bit of money back to Warner Brothers to still be able to make Batman, still be able to make Harry Potter, then fine, just do it. If you don't want to pay out that money, then, you know, just have them cracking on with brand new IPs, because they'll be ready for the offer. To be honest, somebody like Monolith is probably chomping at the bit to do something other than a Lord of the Rings game. They've done 2 big Lord of the Rings games now. I'm not sure what they're on with at the minute, whether there's a third one coming or, you know, I haven't finished I finished the first one, but I didn't finish the second one. So yeah, I mean, I think that's brilliant. So that's officially that they're interested in the running for that. I still don't think they've officially put it up for sale. I think they're just touting for interest at the minute. It's just up to it's whether or not Microsoft are willing to fork out. They're talking about 2 billion, I think it was, and 2 billion sounds like a crazy amount of money, but you know, you talk the amount of money that gaming brings back in. I mean, you would make that money back if you make the proper titles. You'll make that money back in no time. And you know, Microsoft are a multi-trillion dollar company. It's not, you know, it's a lot of money, and it's still something they'd need to think about. But they've got a bottomless chest of cash. It's something they could easily outbid the others for and just crack on. So here's another Xbox piece of news, which I have to disagree with Phil Spencer on, unfortunately. And I love Phil Spencer; he's great. But I read an article just before doing this, actually. I'm going to have a sip of this. Flagging's up to you all, people. It's because I don't do the whole flagging's up thing at the beginning of these podcasts, because this mic's in the way, people. Flagging's up to you. It's thirsty work, people. So I read an article just before recording this very vlog even. And it was Phil Spencer basically talking to somebody, but IGN posted the news article, that the first-party studio games for the next 2 years being able to be played on the Xbox One as well as the Xbox Series X is not going to hold the games back. And he went into all these details about, look at PC and look at they can play all this stuff, and if you've got a lower-end PC, you can still play a lower version of the game, and it doesn't hold it back. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't work like that, does it? Because the whole point of first-party titles is to try and push the absolute maximum out of your hardware. It's not just to make a pretty game that can play pretty over here and slightly less pretty over there. It's to try and push the absolute max out of the power of that console. And if you are thinking about last gen and thinking about it working on an older console, you are not thinking about how to make the most out of every piece of hardware in your console. You cannot possibly be, because it's not just about graphical fidelity and you know, asset fidelity on screen and all this sort of stuff. It is also about the size and scope of the game, like how big you can make that game, how much innards are in that game, the design, you know, like we know like Starfield is not going to play on last gen consoles. It just, well, this gen, it will be last gen consoles. You know, when you want to make an Uber game, you cannot do it going backwards. You can't. Like, the proof is in the pudding, people. Like, The Last of Us Part 2 would not run on a PS3, would it? It just won't. And it doesn't matter how much you scale that game back, you would never get it to run on a PS3. I mean, unless you're going to take half the stuff out of it. You know what I mean? And then, if you're talking, let's talk about this gen specifically, right? If you're looking at, for example, here's a great example, right? Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, right? That they showed that off at the Sony event a number of weeks back, and they talked specifically about the fact that they couldn't possibly have done this on any other piece of hardware, because the way that he shoots through these rifts is literally instantaneously shooting from one level into another. Like, there is no load screens, there's no nothing. He shoots through, he's flying through the air, and he goes banging through a rift into another area, lands, starts fighting, and then another rift opens, he shoots through it, he starts falling, he starts fighting. It's like, there's no load screens, it's like that, because the SSD technology and the architecture they've put behind it is so fast that they can do that with this game. They could not have done that on any other platform at the moment. Even an Uber PC won't do it, because the architecture that they're working with is the only architecture out there that does it. So you cannot possibly be thinking and getting the best out of your new console if you are trying to put it on the last one. You know, you cannot be. You can make a fine game and it'll look fine on one and it'll look slightly less fine on the other. It'll play slightly better frame rates on one and it'll play slightly worse frame rates on the other. But that's the only two things you're going to be talking about, because you cannot possibly make the most out of that piece of hardware if you're still trying to make it for the one behind. You can't. It's just not possible. Especially when you're talking about things that have changed dramatically. You might have got away with it on Xbox One versus 360, but you're not going to get away with it when you're talking about the PS5s and the Xbox Series X. They are a big people will tell you they're not a big jump. They are. That they're a complete redesign of architecture, people. It's not just a case of putting more power in them. These consoles have been, these consoles for me are the biggest leap we've had since the PS2 to Xbox. Well, sorry, PS2 to PS3 or Xbox to Xbox 360, because of the way that they've fundamentally changed the way that these systems work architecturally, and even the power. I mean, you're talking about twice the amount of power as a Pro, I think, in the PS5, and the Pro's fucking powerful. And then you're talking about the same, twice the amount of power for, well, actually it's more, twice an Xbox Series, twice an Xbox One X into an Xbox Series X. But that's just core power. That's not talking about the complete redesign of the architecture and all the great stuff that comes with that. So you can't, I'm sorry, I have to fundamentally disagree with that. You cannot sit there and say that you're not being held back if you're still trying to make those games for your first party titles. They're meant to be your big pushers, they're big sellers for a new console. Like, why should someone go and buy an Xbox Series X if you can play that game just with a few less frames per second on the one back the way, on the X, for example? Why? Like, there's no point to me that. It's the one thing they've done that I didn't agree with. Like, don't try and make your first party titles cross-gen. Like, don't. The whole purpose of those titles for me is to push the sale of your console and to push the absolute limits of that hardware. And if you're not doing that, then you're never going to make games that's going to make people buy that console or jump from PlayStation to that console. You'll never do it, for me. And I know it's only for a couple of years, and I understand that the reason they're probably doing it is because of the situation they're in. They are behind. They've got to think about all the different people they've got in that ecosystem. We love that phrase. And, you know, I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong. I'm just saying you can't sit there and say it's not going to hold you back, because it will. Without any shadow of a doubt, it will. But some of their studios, without any question, will not have games that are coming out yet for about 3 or 4 years. And those studios will not be looking at putting those games on the Xbox One. So I think what they're really saying is, it's just the games that we're ready to push in the next year that are going to be okay. And then after that, I mean, he's saying 2 years, but, you know, what are we really going to get in those 2 years? The new studios they bought are still a few years off, so they're all going to be next gen, not going to be for this one. So it's really the stuff that's been in development for a fair while that's going to go on both. So it's going to be interesting, that, but, you know, and it's fine. You know, I don't mind the fact that they're doing it. I just feel like it is holding them back, and you can't sit there and say that it's not, because it is. And maybe he's just saying that it's not holding us back because we always had the intent of putting these particular games on those consoles anyway, but the ones that are 3 years off are all being developed ahead of thingy anyway. So that maybe he means they're not being held back necessarily because all of the games they intended to be only for Xbox Series X are not going to be released for 3 years anyway, so it doesn't really matter to them. You know, they might as well, you know, Halo is what it is, a Halo Infinite, so, you know, we might as well make a lower version of it for the one before. You know, fair enough, I suppose. But you can't sit there and say it's not holding you back, because you can't sit there certainly and say we're still pushing this machine to its absolute maximum, because you're not with those titles, you're not. So anyway, there you are. But I love you, Phil. I always have, and I always will. I've got the scented candles on today, people, talking about love. Quite a few of you mentioned about the scented candles last week, people. They will be on. Every time we do a podcast, they will be on. You're delighted. You can smell them from where you are. I bet you can. Vanilla were on, people. Vanilla scented candles. Do you love me a scented candle, people? What are we on? Last but not least, people. Last but not least. Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning is not far away. I think it got delayed like a week or 2 weeks or something. I can't remember. It got delayed a teeny weeny bit. I was going to get rid of this phone, but I haven't got anywhere to put it. It's not thought out, people. I've got nowhere for me drink. I've got nowhere for me phone. The only reason I'm mentioning it again, because we know it's coming. I mentioned it in a number of vlogs back. But Kingdoms of Amalur is, I've got a Let's Play up there of, I don't know, about 50 odd episodes, might be more. But I think it's 50 or 60 episodes up there. Never finished it as a playthrough, but I finished it multiple times off camera when I didn't do that sort of thing, way back in the day. But the one that's up there is the Xbox One X one. Started a playthrough on that on the back compat. Looks delightful on that anyway. But the trailer that came out for it And I know it's a cutscene type footage. It's not showing his gameplay, but the vibe of that isn't the vibe of the original game. It looks amazing, but I feel like I'm getting overexcited because it feels to me like that's just not a HD of this game. It's like a proper reskinning because, well, firstly, it was a woman in a very well, the armor was similar, but it looked more metallic and more firm or real. The armor and stuff in the game was always kind of rubbery looking. It didn't ever look sort of metal. Well, the leather stuff was all right, but if you had this tin stuff on, it always looked a little bit rubbery, sort of the way that it was. So I'm very excited now to see how they've reskinned that game. And it's also given me really good vibes for what they'll do in the follow up to Kingdoms of Amalur. And I'm trying to remember now who got it. Was it Obsidian? No, it wasn't Obsidian because it was a Microsoft company, was it? I'm forgetting who it was now. But it's an RPG. An RPG. Oh, that's annoying me now. I've mentioned it umpteen times. But anyway, they are RPG people. They're not everyone's biggest fan, but I think that when they bought the IP, I was like, yeah, they might do all right with this. So, when you buy the IP, I don't know if they bought the engines that it came with, but if all they've done is buy the IP and they've got their hands on the original game, and maybe they've converted it somehow into engines that they use, or maybe they've just put a new sort of skin on top of the stuff. Maybe they have just sheened it up, but it certainly was a very different vibe watching that trailer. It's only about, I don't know, a minute long, but very, very interesting nonetheless. So I'm super stoked for that now. I actually said that I wasn't going to buy that at launch because I'd done my 50 odd 60 let's play episodes of an hour a piece or an hour and a half a piece, and I thought maybe it's a bit too soon to play it again. But looking at the way it was looking, and I'm such a graphic whore anyway, people, and just getting the vibes for it again, I thought, oh, maybe it's one I'm going to have to get at launch. So I'm super stoked for that. Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning. I love the title as well, people. I mean, that's a good one, isn't it? It's a good one, that. It's better than Kingdoms of Amalur Remastered, isn't it? Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning. Like, the less we use the word remastered, the better for me now. I love a good remaster, don't get me wrong, but I'm becoming far more a fan of remakes, the remakes, when they do a proper remake like they did with Resi's and now they're doing with the Demon's Souls for the PlayStation 5 and what have you. Super stoking, people. Flags it once again to you all. That's all I have for you, actually. How far do we get there? 40 minutes! Well, near on. Considering that I had because I worked late again, I generally on a Friday, as I'm working away doing my thing, maybe at lunch or something, I'll start having a little ponder about, right, have I got subjects for tonight? And then I just jot down some subjects on my notepad. And then it'll kind of be half in my head through the day, and then or even through the week, but I'll make sure in my head on Friday I've got what I want to talk about. And considering I jotted that list down about 15 minutes before before I actually sat down and recorded, I'm quite chuffed with that, people. I've usually got an opinion one way or the other on most things anyway, so you know me, people. I could talk to myself till the cows come home. It's a good job some of you watch me, to be fair. Otherwise, I literally would be. Now, here's the thing, people, and I'll probably do a different vlog on this, or podcast. I was going to do a massive thank you for the 6,000 subscribers. The problem is that I tend to wait until when I hit a landmark like that, I tend to wait until it's like 6,000 or 5,050 or something. Because inevitably, if I get 3 or 4 over, it drops back down because a lump of people unsubscribe, which is fine. It's not a problem. But it doesn't feel great when you do a massive thing saying thank you to everyone for the 6,000 subscribers, and then when you actually post the video up, you're on 5,995. You know what I mean? So, and it's fine. I mean, I do realise that an awful lot of you watch this channel for my gameplay, for the Let's Plays, and me chatting over the Let's Plays. I'm just not doing them at the moment. I've found myself at a point in life where I wanted to get back to enjoying a game for a game. I hadn't finished games for so long because of doing that, because I get through partway through a Let's Play, it starts to become like work. I then stop. I then don't finish the game because I think, well, I might go back to it and record more. And then I just end up in this never-ending cycle of never finishing anything. And it's not that I don't want to, it's just that we have to remember that I do this part-time, people. I have a full-time job. If I was someone that did this for a living, then I would absolutely be. I'd be punting these things out to you every day, non-stop. But it does, like, it's not just playing the game. Like, it's all the work that comes with it. Like putting the intros and outros on, rendering it, uploading it, putting all the thumbnails together and all that sort of stuff, because I won't do it unless I can do it properly. I don't like half-assed stuff. So I hear you all when you say that you do like my Let's Play stuff and you hope I'll do more. I hope I'll be back in the zone for doing some more at some point. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying doing, I'm doing one a week of these vlogs. If I get the urge to do a midweek one, then I might. But at the moment, I'm just really enjoying, hearing what's going on through the week, giving you a nice big vlog if I can, or big podcast as we're doing now, and sort of catching up with you guys that way, and getting some comments off you and chin wagging with you in the comments and stuff. And I'm really enjoying it. It's keeping me enjoying the channel at the moment. And as I say, if it was something I was doing full time, then I'd be hammering the channel with content. But when you work all day and then, I've just reached a point where I just want to enjoy my games for my games and start finishing some. And when I started doing that this year, I finished 6 games this year, I think it is now. And maybe that's not a lot to some people, but that's a lot of games for me. I think I finished 1 game last year. Can't even remember what it was, but it's a running joke with just about everybody, and especially Aaron Brew, that I never finish games, and that is the reason. It's not that I don't want to finish them; it's because I always have this back thought of like, well, what if I want to record it? I don't want to have, I don't want to carry on off camera because I've got this Let's Play going. So now that I just sit down and play them for playing them, I'm finishing them, and it also means I can play stuff off camera that I wouldn't put on the channel, because my channel is predominantly, we know that the channel is an RPG channel. People watch my RPG stuff. They're not there for anything else. If I post anything other than RPG up, I get about 5 views. People aren't interested. And that's fine. It's absolutely fine. But it means that those type of games, which I enjoy, I can't play them on camera. And if I'm recording, I can't play them off camera because I've no time left to play them. So it's kind of this whole cycle of like, where does the time come from, But anyway, I hope you guys are, there's a lot of Let's Play content up there, though. So if you do feel like I'm not posting any up, then just look through my Let's Play lists and, bear in mind, the very few of them are all the way through. But a lot of them have got a lot of episodes. And if you want some of that content, it's there. It never goes anywhere. I don't take any of my content down. So, there is the earlier stuff. You can tell that I get more and more comfortable doing it as time goes on. Very, very early stuff, I'm not quite as comfortable on the mic as I am now, but that's just the nature of things. A lot of people in my position doing channels like this take that sort of content down because they're embarrassed of it, but I just leave it up. I think it's nice for people to see the progression, see where I started, see how things have moved on and how much better I've got at doing what I do, and how more. It's amazing how comfortable you get in front of camera and on a microphone if you just keep doing it. There's nothing weirder, like when you first start doing stuff like this, you feel really uncomfortable talking into a camera, or especially if you're living in a house with other people. If you're living on your own, I live on my own now, but if I started in a house on my own, I would have felt far more at ease quicker, I think. But you're always conscious of people hearing you, but you're very self-conscious anyway. Even if there's nobody else in the house and you're just starting off, you do feel weird just talking to yourself. But when I do the commentary, it's literally just me speaking my thoughts. Like, it's like there's no real thought process. It's just me talking. It's just me thinking out loud, effectively, is all I'm doing. Anyway, people, I've gone off on a tangent here. A tangent, I tell you. Should we wrap it up for those people that are bored? I'm sure they've probably switched off by now. Well, it has, in fact, been an honour and a privilege serving for you in this second podcast of mine, people. And I shall see you all in the next one. Take it easy. Bye.